Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to Community Connections. We're glad to be here. We have Tim Higgins from Buffalo County, and we have Paul Hazard from from Kearney Public Schools. This meeting is sponsored by Northwestern Energy. And Tim, do you want to start us off?
Yes, thank you. Good morning. We've had some fairly short meetings, a lot of zoning, public hearing things we've approved the last couple of meetings. Obviously, the roads got hit by the last storm. I received a few phone calls from a certain person that's sitting next to me.
Was it text?
A text, okay. Are you in town? Yeah. No, I'm not in town. But when obviously you get a heavy rainstorm, it keeps our crews busy full time, rehashing, cleaning out the sides of the roads, regrooving the roads. It's quite the process, and as dry as they were, they got really wet quick, and so it became kind of a messy, sticky situation. So I know the crews are working. They work 4 10-hour days during the week. They take Fridays off, and they come back again, and they work another 4 10 hours, and that'll go through October 1st. We have a camera system in most of our buildings, and the extension building had a bunch of like home goods thrown into their dumpster, and so they brought it up on the camera, and they could see the plates on the car and who it was, and they tracked the guys down, and they made them come back and take them out of the dumpster. So he was literally dumpster diving. So what else? Obviously, we were raising money to put a sport court in Ravenna Lake. We had 3/4 of it done, and all of a sudden we get a very nice donation from an anonymous source. He's filling the rest of the void, and we should have those pouring cement for those this week, and they should be up and running in September. So very generous donation of $60,000, and we had raised the other amount, so no taxpayers' dollars were used. So that's always nice to get a nice chunk of change handed to you, and no questions asked. We had put in a very, very, very nice sand volleyball court already, which was basically donated. We had sponsors for that, and sand is pretty cheap, so we have plenty of that in this state. So we were able to get that in fairly well. Protests will start July 8th. I think you have till the 29th to file to protest your tax valuation, according to the assessor. And Roy is really good about this. If you have a question, come down and talk to Roy, and he'll talk you through it. And generally the guy or the people will walk out satisfied with their answers. So he does a really good job with that. But we'll hear protest July 8th, and then another date. It's a low number for change. When one year we heard 2,500, so I think we might be under 100. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. We still have the 29th to file. Obviously, I got my postcard the other day, and mine went up a substantial amount, and I've got a couple phone calls about theirs going, oh, well, do you think you could sell it for that? Well, yeah, then that's probably what it's worth. So that's what we tell people when they come through the protests. There's some protests that come in and they'll say it's a $460,000 home, and I haven't done anything to it. Why is it so high? And we look at it, we look at the comparables, and we say, well, you could probably sell it for that, because people are in a bidding war in a lot of the homes in town right now. So generally they walk out with, okay, if it's worth that much, it's worth that much. And if I could sell it, I would. So, we're lucky here in Nebraska. Luckily, Tammy's here from the city, to have zoning laws. The county has zoning laws. We have a zoning board. I spent 3 weeks in Austin, Texas, and they don't believe in zoning. They just close stuff up and just let it rot. So we're really lucky where we live, and I'm proud to say I'm a Nebraskan. So, but I do like certain sport teams that my son plays on. So you got it. You know what I mean? Right, Paul?
That's true. Very true.
Any questions for me? No? All right. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for the hard-hitting information about dumpster diving. Thank you. Appreciate that.
There's cameras everywhere.
Good to know.
It was worth your trip.
Right. Well, I'll be told.
Well, guys, ladies, thanks for coming. We had a pretty quick meeting. We had a lot of positive things at Kearney Public Schools, and excited to share those. We did 3 recognitions. One was we had a young lady, Ava Benner, score a 36 on her ACT. She took it the first time and got a 32, and then she got a 36. And we asked her, hey, so did you do the study guides or the classes? And she's, no, just retook it. And so I asked her, I said, did you think you got a 30? Did you think hey, I did really good? And she's like, oh, I thought I did okay. I mean, this part, math, I didn't know about. And I'm like, so she's going to Georgia Tech. She pretty much, if you get a 36, I think you just pretty much pick where you want to go and you go. So that was really cool to see her and honor her. That's our second one in a row, in the second year in a row. Last year we had Drew Welsh, got a 36, and he went to Nebraska. We did a recognition of the Kearney High School girls track team, and Nate Plotchek, head coach. They were runner-ups at the state track meet. And if you don't know this, if you're not track followers, our girls programs, I mean, all of our programs, but our girls track program last year, they got 3rd, and coming down to the final race, it was a 1-point spread between 1st and 3rd, and we were in 1st. And so as the last race shook out, we ended up in 3rd by a point or a point and a half. And then this year we ended up in a solid 2nd. We had 1 state champion, Alexa Jacobson, in the shot put, which is cool. And then we did a recognition of the Hanny Rom Center, their STEM team. I'm going to paraphrase this the best I can, but they do some stuff with training for energy and electricity. And they went to a conference in Kansas, and they basically teach people that come to the booth, the kids teach people that come to the booth how this energy system they've created works. And they're one of only 3 schools in Nebraska to ever get the award they got. So they finished really, really high. They get to go to a national event now in Washington, D.C. And that partnership with Train will continue on next year at Hanny Rom. And what's really cool about it is it kind of builds on each other, and then the kids have the ownership of the program rather than it being teacher down to student. It becomes student to student. So it's a really cool program that we're blessed to be able to have. We did not have any public comment.
Whoa.
I'm just telling you, if you make through with no public comment, it's usually
First time in 4 years.
Usually a good deal. Just a couple updates on our SROs, our school resource officers. I always like to talk about our school resource officers because we have such a great partnership with KPD and the city and what they allow them to do. So we did get our 4th school resource officer approved. So we have 4 of them now. We have one there's always one at the high school. So if that high school is open, we always have a school resource officer there. Then we have one at a middle school and one at the other middle school. Then it's split on 2nd Avenue, the elementaries are, so our 4th one can rove. So if there's a big event at Kearney High School, you might have 2 there. If there's some sort of recognition or a program or some sort of maybe there was some sort of an emergency or a low-level threat that other SRO can go wherever they need to be. So that's been huge to be able to have that. And then the numbers, a lot of times people hear law enforcement and what do they think? Enforcement, right? Those SROs are only doing enforcement about 15 to 20% of the time at the schools. And now I'm typically talking about the high school now. So about 20% of their work is actually going to be some sort of a criminal referral or a juvenile referral to the county attorney's office. But the other 80% of the time, they're building relationships with these kids. They're almost acting kind of as counselors, as being a trusted adult that they can talk to. Maybe it's something in the home life, maybe it's something in school. But I can't say enough the dividends that we can't track that pays, because those relationships now end up in, that's the anonymous tip to law enforcement because I know, Officer Epley, and so I'm going to let him know Jeff is talking about XYZ. Or they're outside of school and they know something's going on, and those relationships start to form the communication that we need to prevent the things that we don't want in Kearney. So we're super grateful we have them. Here's just a couple numbers for you. Our alcohol and drug use on campus at Kearney High was down significantly from last year to this year. And then our assaults would be anything from a confrontation in the hallway to an all-out Sally beat up Susie. Those are down significantly also, which is good. But we still have the problems with the almighty vapes. Vapes are the popular thing for kids, unfortunately. We did partner up with, there's a couple companies that offer vape detectors. So they're literally like a smoke detector, but they can detect the vape fumes or whatever you want to call it. And then they can go off and they can alert either audibly, or it could go to like a school administrator or an SRO and just alert them that this vape detector has been triggered. They're really expensive though. I mean, really expensive. However, those companies have each given us a vape detector to use in our school for a year for free, just to see, and we can move those. So we could have it in this room today, and next week we could put it over in the bathroom in the West Wing or wherever we want to do. So we're going to test out those vape detectors. From being a cop back in the day, my hunch is the vape detectors will stop the problem where it is and move it to a different location. That would be my guess. And hopefully that location is off campus, because that's our job. So excited about getting those vape detectors and that. And then the last thing we had was we had a bad incident with a teacher that is a track coach, Eric Sutterfield, great guy. He didn't do anything bad, but he was demonstrating some pole vault techniques and he blew out his knee. So he had to have a major surgery on his knee. And the problem with that is he's also our construction tech guy that helps build the construction tech house with the students. And so now you have a major problem because we're supposed to be digging a hole for our new house that we're going to build next year. However, he's can't go up. He can't be on his foot. I can't remember if it's 6 weeks or 4 months. I mean, it's a long time. He's got to be off, like not weight bearing. So we had another teacher, Andrew Olson, who's also certified in that same area, agree to switch with Eric Sutterfield so we can still dig a hole, and he will take over that program as long as needed while Eric recovers. And then because we were thinking, to be honest with you, we were going to have to stop that program for at least a year because we didn't have anybody that could do it. And I mean, hiring a general contractor to come in probably isn't feasible. So good news, we're going to be able to continue that. And that teacher swap, we got really lucky that happened to continue that for those kids. And along those lines, the last thing is we sold our construction tech home that's up on 5207 18th Avenue. We sold that and we'll be closing on that July 6th. And last tidbit on that, I think it's interesting. That program is 100% self-sufficient. So the sale of that house will pay for the next house, and it also pays the majority of the teacher that we have doing the instruction as well. So it really doesn't cost anything, but it gives these kids the hands-on experience that I don't think there's any other place in Nebraska that has a program that actually builds a house from the ground up year after year. So it's a feather in our hat we have for our kids. So
And having them all lined up in a cul-de-sac that they all did.
That's true.
You
Yeah.
know, that doesn't happen anywhere.
Yeah. Anybody got any questions for me? Or
So if I remember right, with the beginning of the year, we talked about getting the wands, and the idea with the wands, we're gonna catch a lot of vapes. It sounds like that's not really working. It's not stopping a lot of vapes.
we do have the wands. We did get the wands. The wands, we are not wanding kids, everybody that comes in. They're wanding kids based on let's call it a reasonable suspicion. Hey, you've been in the bathroom for 20 minutes or, XYZ going on. They build up to that, then they'll wand kids. That has been successful, but we're not using them to the level of, randomly, hey, you're next, like TSA, bing, you came through the door next, you're getting wanded. We don't use them like that. It's only on, I would venture to guess if I put a number on it, we might only use that wand once a week or less. Right. Okay. Well, thank you guys.
All right. Well, sorry, I slipped in here late. I had a Rotary meeting at 7 and I hit every traffic light. They don't give us those little things we can use, even if we're on council, to change the traffic light. And I agree, Tim, every time I go to another city now, I have a different viewpoint of codes and why Kearney looks so good and why other cities don't. So,
Yep.
yeah.
We're
it
lucky
gets
where we
into-
live.
We are. And I know a lot of times we focus on codes and the costs they add to homes and developments, but I wouldn't trade it.
It's worth it.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to start with employments because I used the Chicago flight a couple weeks ago. We always wonder how that's going to impact our Denver flights because we're so used to going to Denver to go to the East Coast. We have an 81% load factor still for our Denver flights, and we're up to 75 for our Chicago. So, it's what we need. The times I know are difficult because for my trip, I went from here to Chicago to New York, but I had to go from New York to Denver to Kearney to get home. And the reason for that is because we have to find a gate, well, yeah, you know all about that, at the airports. And when we were looking at times for Chicago, I kind of lean towards the later in the day because generally if I'm going to Chicago, I'm going to Europe and those flights are at night. Or you're going to New York and they have a lot of flights after that. So when we're going to Chicago or Denver to make a connection, if you're going to another big location, you're probably fine. But for instance, I'm going to North Carolina for a conference this week. They have one flight to this smaller airport. Wilmington is big, but not huge. And so trying to make that connection sometimes is not going to work for us through Kearney. And that's just we're waiting to get maybe a more favorable gate, and we may actually have our times changed out of our control. So it's just a juggling act. But I encourage you to use Kearney Airport anytime you can. It is so great to come in, get in your car, and be in your own bed in 15 minutes. So, and the parking's still free. It will be as long as we can keep it that way. All right, the infrastructure across town. Summer is always a time that we try to fix as much as we can. And every time we take one big project, we're going to uncover some other things. So again, plan accordingly. It's probably going to be a little slower when you're trying to get through places like A Avenue right now. We're trying to wrap that up there so that will all be a little bit smoother. But summer is that's what's going to happen in the city with infrastructure and fixing the streets. So we just need to be aware of that. The downtown lighting project is put on hold for a minute. The bids went out. They came back above where they should be. So we're just going to wait and try to get a more favorable price on those, which brings up the bidding process. And I think probably everybody in here understands the bidding process, but we've had a lot of pushback this year at City Council about not giving bids to local businesses. And I just want to remind everybody that the bidding process has to be fair when we're dealing with taxpayer dollars. It has to be the most efficient use of funds. And a lot of our big companies in Kearney would not be able to get jobs in other locations if those other locations only gave to local contractors. So, we're not showing favoritism in any way. There's a reason we do the open bidding process. It's to be open and to make sure that we're using taxpayer money in the best possible way. So I encourage everybody to kind of brush up on the bidding process before they get concerned about, not showing or trying to show favoritism locally, because I would love to have all of our local companies, you know, at the top of the list, but they have to be competitive, and there's a reason for that. So any questions about that before I go on? I feel like I'm doing my professor lecture right now. I need to get off that. Okay, because a lot of bids have gone out recently, and I just wanted to make you aware of that. Yanni Park, my goodness, if you went out to Heritage Day, you may have had to park here and walk. It was crazy how many people were there. Amazing Heritage Day programming again. Fireworks were awesome. I don't know about you, but did anybody notice there was a little bit more vibration to the ground from these? Are they using bigger shells or something? I was so happy because my two dogs now can't hear, so they don't get excited about them, and then they could feel the earth move, and then they got excited. So.
Gunpowder.
Yes, it's gunpowder, and we were supposed to have drones, and they backed out at the last minute. So I just, at Rotary this morning, was hearing the plans for our 250th celebration at the fairgrounds, and I think that's going to be really, really nice. He was talking about 50 minutes of fireworks, so anyway, we'll have that. There is a tribute to Mike Yanni at Yanni Park sometime in July. I can't remember the date exactly, but you know, big deal. We need to acknowledge how important he was to the formation of that park and all the amazing things we have there. So I hope we have a really good turnout for that. The Sportsplex over here is going live with their sponsorship opportunities, and to be expected when you have something that's connected to sports, there's the sponsorship options to that. So that's being pursued right now. Our tennis center got the 2026 Outstanding Facility in the Nation from the U.S. Tennis Association. And they'll be getting an award in New York City on August 31st for that. That's a big deal.
That
Really?
is.
Yeah, we're doing great things. The data center, of course, you probably all have seen some of the controversy about that. This most recent one is a very small one. It's also contained in the building, recirculating water. So we did look at it closely. You know, a lot of accusations were that we were just letting data centers come in. This one we did not feel was going to be problematic. And we do put all of these things out to the public before we meet and approve them. And I know it always seems to hit people too late if they're interested in it. So we did have concerned citizens, which we appreciate, who got the petition and all of that and want to be involved in future decisions. We are a prime area for these data centers because we've got the water and we've got the space. We're not just opening it up for them to come in and take over. We have codes. We do need to revisit those codes because this is a new world, a new era. And so our staff is charged right now with looking at the codes we have now, anticipating future problems and future needs, and going to the research and the experts. For instance, UNK has a communication disorders department with professors who are doing research on impact, of things to hearing. So we need to get the facts, but we need to let city staff work on it first because they're the ones in charge of code. Then we're going to have a citizens advisory committee. And we have a lot of really amazing citizens who are stepping up to give their time. They don't get a big paycheck for these things. Then they will look at the proposed changes and give some more feedback to that. But it stays in the rotation that we go city staff, feedback, planning commission, city council for these kind of code changes. Yes.
Do you feel like there's some irrational concerns about the development of data centers? I mean, I think some of the stuff I hear is just crazy stuff, I think.
Well, and we don't know enough about that because we haven't really had this kind of a business or a service for long enough to really know the impact. You do hear a hum, from it. It makes a noise. It does use water, which I was really pleased with this last one that recirculates it. Water goes somewhere. It doesn't disappear, but it does have to be treated. So we need to have people who are vigilant or looking at that because vigilantes. No. We need to have people who are really focused on that because it is a big change and there may be problems. Are they overreacting right now? Hindsight's always, one way to decide. But I'm very grateful that these citizens were concerned, and they did a very good job of asking to be part of the process, and they came with their research. So I don't fault them at all. I'm really glad that we have people who are concerned. So
Where do they
Yeah.
get their research numbers from?
well,
Well, my concern is I think you have irrational bias on one, against data centers. And then, if those are the people volunteering to be on the advisory committee, now you have a whole totally biased
Yeah.
board determining whether we get a data center or not, when it makes perfect sense to have a data center in central Nebraska where we have lots of water. That water doesn't disappear. It gets, recycled and used again. But it's not using up water.
As always.
It's using water, but it's not using it up.
our city manager is doing a great job of putting that advisory group together. She's taking some volunteers who are going to come in with their bias and with their particular items that they're interested in. But she's also going to get someone from MPPD. She's going to go out to the other players. And so it's not going to be just a group who are angry. It's going to be
Okay.
really reasoned people.
Thank you.
So you're welcome. Yeah. I was very, very pleased when I saw, it gets very complicated when you try to bring volunteers into any kind of decisions in a governmental level. But I think this advisory committee and the way they're going to be utilized, they aren't going to make the codes. At first, that was kind of like what they wanted to do. And trust me, they don't want to have to make codes. That's a really difficult thing to do. But now being advisory members, I think it's got a good balance. So, but you're right. This is something new we're dealing with, and we're going to have to figure it out. We're not going to go back. I'm sorry, no one's going to stop Googling. And so we're going to have to figure out how to do that. It's right up there with the AI stuff because they're so interconnected. Yeah. Okay. You guys have questions about that again at the end. I'll get back to you about that. We continue to expand out on the expressway. So I think we're in the 4th development out there by Butler. So we had to, do some easement kind of things with that. We recognized last night some new volunteer firefighters. So important for us. That's kind of our bread and butter. That's how we get our services out. That has been harder over time. There are some employers who don't allow the kind of flexibility needed and just kind of a drop in the numbers. So we recognize 2 new ones, Ryan Arbogast and Jake Flint. So really happy to have them on board. We also gave out licenses to mobile home parks, and those are only given out if they meet standards. So one did get denied and has to do some things to get their license renewed later. And then back to the bidding and being open and transparent. Last night, we had an updated list of approved financial institutions for depository purposes. So if you go on to the website and you look at our agenda, you can see all of the approved places that the Kearney City funds can be moved around in. That's very transparent. That's really, I think, a feather in a cap. We have a really great person in place now in our finance department, and he's doing a great job. And then we also solidified which city officials are authorized to issue between these institutions last night. So that was another thing on our consent agenda, which I understand that whole process has its perks and it has some drawbacks too. But that's basically what we did last night. Pretty quick meeting. Again, no public comment. So in and out.
Did you have any? I'm coming.
Any
Yeah.
questions?
So for the mobile park permits, are those new mobile parks or those just renewal?
No, just renewals on an annual basis. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we've had a new mobile park for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of the codes.
Yeah.
That volunteer fire department is very important. There was a guy that moved up here from New Mexico who was part of fire, and he just could not believe that we had a volunteer fire department. I have a friend that's becoming a paid fireman at a city in Georgia, not too much different than Kearney, a little bigger, but that is a huge advantage for our city.
It is. And recognized regionally, we really do get a lot of perks.
Tammy, what about damage last night?
Well, That's a good question, but it's just the morning. Give me a minute. There are trees down, Tim, and there are branches down. And I was surprised there wasn't more of an electric outage. NPPD got things back up pretty fast. If any of you were watching that storm, I looked at my upper deck. I had a rug that was just going in a cyclone for like 3 minutes. So it was not just straight winds. There was some really nasty stuff going on. So yeah, it's going to be cleanup time, and our crews are out there doing it, I'm sure.
Yeah, we have a question. You know, we get a lot of comments about affordable housing in Kearney because it's not the cheapest place to live, and it obviously is a beautiful community to be in. However, has the city looked at places that potentially they could maybe put a mobile home park to provide affordable housing, but put it in a location which would be more palatable to the general public?
I think, one of the major problems in Kearney for housing is location, period. We approved 140 some lots a couple meetings ago. So it's the owners of the land in Kearney are they're not super motivated to sell it. They don't need to. So we've had a very controlled growth. So finding a spot for a mobile home park or even low income is very difficult. My nonprofit built the sixplex on a lot. Well, since we built it, all the lots around there have gone almost 10 times the value of what we paid. Right. We're kind of a victim of our own success there because we can't afford to build anymore. So land is a problem, definitely, for that. I will share with you, because we are hosting the Nebraska Economic Development Conference here the next few days. I did go to a meeting, and at the state level, one of their plans, which I find problematic, is that they want to bring in thousands of prefabricated homes. Nothing against the prefabricated homes, but when I asked the question, where are you going to get them? Well, they were going to have to go to Colorado because we don't have any manufacturers in Nebraska that could do that quantity, which gives you the discount on them. And so my question to them was, we're going to take millions of Nebraska dollars to Colorado companies to bring modular homes into communities that compete with local modular and building. That just didn't make sense. And I haven't heard any more about that. So I don't know if they listened or not. So we're trying to look at different alternatives. And I'm surprised you didn't call me to fill in at the high school for the building situation.
I should have.
You got my number.
That's right.
So affordable housing, I'm leaving the council at the end of the year. I didn't run again. My personal feelings there is Kearney's probably going to have to get used to the fact that our growth is going to be in the higher end jobs. We're not going to bring in manufacturing plants with our housing situation right now. There is no way to do that. Buffalo County Community Partners did a study, and someone working at minimum wage would have to work 70 hours a week to afford a 2-bedroom apartment in Kearney. So, that's not a workforce development for any kind of manufacturing or lower paying jobs. We're very, very lucky that we've got the medical profession and we've got a lot of professional, but that means we're not bringing people in. The data centers, one of the complaints is you don't bring in a lot of workforce with that. Kearney can't bring in a lot of workforce, So what we get from the data center is the money we get back from MPPD. I mean, it flows through. But our housing problem is a problem, and that's the one regret I have with the 8 years I've spent on council is we just really haven't made any progress. But, Robert, what we're dealing with the real estate.
I was just going to point out from some of the information that I've gathered this last year, the mobile home situation is not unique to Kearney or Nebraska. I think there were only 6 to 8 mobile home parks started in the entire United States last year. So housing across the United States is an issue, and that is still an impasse. The prefabricated home situation, there are companies that do that prefabrication, and I've talked to a couple of them to see if they might be interested in putting a plant in Nebraska, either taking an old resource building that's not being used for something else and retooling it so that we could have that type of thing here. And that's a process that the city and probably the county would have to get involved in as far as recruiting that. I think that's a possibility because it's not just Kearney that needs it. the surrounding communities are also in that circumstance and situation. So those are the comments I had, but I did want to ask a question about the data centers. Do we know who the investors are behind these data centers? And in the long term, is there any kind of oversight that can be given by local individuals on a board or boards as to how those things progress and how they're used in the future? Because sometimes, from what I understand, if you have outside investors, once it's there, it's like they're operating on their own from a remote location and we don't have any input. So we have something in place that we don't have any control over. And that's one of the things as a community, if we've got our regulations that we probably need to do is have a tie in so that they can't just operate independently of what our wishes are.
But that requires peeling back some layers, and going into some places free market would say is a problem, because if you look at a lot of our businesses in town, they were local at one time, they're not local anymore. So we see that investment, from outside sources. It definitely is something to look at. I don't know that we can control it in the aspects that we really can't tell businesses, where they can get their money unless it's illegal. So
Well, the other thing though, it'd be kind of like, and this may be a step too far, I don't know, but trying to prevent Chinese investment in land around here or those type of things. We don't know who those investors are, I don't anyway, in these data centers. Who are some of the people that are making the profit out of it? And are they United States entities or are they entities that are outside, and what kind of control do they have? That type of thing, so.
yeah, I think it's a problem, but I think it's probably above the city.
Well, it's one of those things that it's layered.
Yeah.
And that's why you were saying this is a new problem, it's a new issue. I think there are principles that we can apply, but it's moving so fast, it's hard for us to sit down and put that all together and then educate the community in it. We have a tendency to just let other people make decisions until they're made and then we complain about it.
We're reactive instead of proactive, absolutely. Okay.
Tammy, you have an online question.
Oh,
It
no.
says, we have the workforce available for higher wage jobs. We are an educated city, so how are we bringing in higher wage jobs?
We aren't purposefully doing that. That is a natural thing. So for instance, the rural health center right now, the education center, is staffing their professors. Who are their professors? They are medical professionals, because now we can give medical MD degrees here. We can give pharmacy or pharmacist degrees here. So now we're bringing in the faculty for that. So that's, the higher salary level people coming in for that.
Hopefully
So-
that answered their question.
Yeah, it's not that we're going to go out and cherry pick people around the nation, but it's what's naturally feeding into what's growing. I mean, we have 3 cancer centers in a town under 40,000. That says something about what our focus has become.
Well, when you're in economic development, you have to select companies that you're trying to bring in here that aren't going to require 300 employees. You're looking for the types of jobs that will create maybe 10 high-paying
Right.
jobs versus
And focus on the growth of what's
those, because
already
you
here.
can't bring in the lower income, just like you said. You can't afford to move from Chicago for a $20 an hour job.
One interesting thing with the housing developments and the constrictions of there's not enough housing, the enrollment at Kearney Public Schools is not going up. So when people ask all the time, with all the growth, and I'm not denying the growth, but I would tell you the growth isn't with families. Growth isn't with kids, because we're perfectly aligned for elementary schools. We don't need another elementary school because our birth rate numbers are actually less than they were 5 years ago. I mean, not significantly, but they're trending the same, but yet Kearney's growing. So when you look at the growth of Kearney, I think that's important to keep in mind too, of who is coming to Kearney. It's not young families.
Those growth projections, when I was part of that committee, when they're getting ready to build high school, we're not at the high school numbers that they thought we would be at.
Right.
Because it shifted from families to professionals or.
Yeah. We've
Yep.
seen all of these new duplexes pop up all over town. A lot of those families buying those are people retiring from the communities around, which brings, I mean, I love having them move to
Sure.
Kearney, but they're not bringing the next generation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're right.
Which is something we need to keep in mind 20 years from now. Because we can have the same effect that China's having at this point, where they have zero growth. And now they have a crisis coming up in the next 10 years, 15 years, that they don't have population to fill what they have, to sustain what they have right now.
Boy, we got deep today, Dan.
That was deep.
Yeah.
You should come more often. All
All
right.
right, any more questions? Okay. Well, thank you, Paul and Tammy, for coming, and Tim already took off, but we thank him too online. But again, Community Connections is sponsored by Northwestern Energy. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We hope to see you next